Okay, what's up, guys? It's Mshamba Marekani, and today we'll be talking about surviving in USA. For beginners. Uh, see, most of the things. I wish I had people who would tell me. How maybe to maneuver the system. In a new environment. When you're beginning. So I'll just give you guys. We'll talk about some of those things. So the first thing, for most of you guys, when you're coming, I think I've discussed this in some of the the previous topics in the videos. And the first thing, and I get a lot of questions from guys, on my email, on Facebook inbox, asking me, how do you maneuver, how do you start, and most of those things, they gravitate towards, like, how do you do it, like when you first come here, and that's what we're going to be talking about. The main thing is having somebody is going to host you. And this is a very, very interesting thing, because you need somebody on the ground, unless if you have a relative, or maybe somebody, a family member, that might be easier for you. But it's not always the case. But you guys, you have to look for somebody who's gonna host you, and somebody, you have to be open with them and tell them, because there are many cases where people agree they're gonna host somebody. Maybe you get to the airport and you're just stranded. You don't have anybody. They don't answer your calls. What are you gonna do? You're in a foreign land. You really don't know anybody. So I advise you guys, make your connections. Make sure you're keeping in communication with whoever is gonna host you. Even in terms, update them in terms even when you're going to arrive, because people have busy lives. They have schedules. So you might schedule your flight, and that day they might not be available to pick you up. So you might either be stranded at the airport or have to wait for them, to leave their job and come pick you up. So guys, make sure you communicate. Tell people. Most of the host, the guys who's gonna host you, most of them, some people, it's America. They're gonna tell you this is America. We're gonna give you 1 month, then you're gonna start paying bills. And it happens to a lot of people. So guys, if you have some money stashed somewhere, make sure at least you have some money. Because you're gonna need money for some basic needs. Whoever is hosting you is giving you a place to stay, until you're able, to jumpstart, if it's your career or your life. So make sure you have some money, some pocket money. That way you'll be able, if you want to maybe buy some airtime, so you can be able to call your people back home. And most of the guys who are hosting you, maybe they have a family. uh you have to be like, smart. You have to move really fast and be interested in knowing things. One of the things I tell people is, when you get here, try and connect. Look for, you know places where you can socialize. Mostly, if you're a Christian, look for, the churches they go. Make sure, if you're host, they go to church. Even if they don't go, make sure they connect you somehow. You can be able to go to church. Or if you're Muslim, you can be able to go to the mosque. That way you're gonna meet people. Connections, connections are really important. When I got here, that's how I connected with a lot of people. Somebody has a job, they're gonna tell you about it. Somebody knows somebody who knows somewhere else where you'll be able to apply for a job. So because your host is not gonna know everything, and they have a busy life, so make sure you're connecting with other people when you go into those social events. Don't be scared. I know it's a new country for you, and you're like, man, I really don't know what to do. I don't know how to react, how to talk to people. There's always that culture shock. You're not used to, you coming to America. Maybe you're coming from a place where there's not a lot of white people. You're not used to that. Or people from other nationalities. So you guys, it's like a culture shock. It's a new environment, new buildings. The weather is still different. So some people tend to be reserved and they just keep quiet and expect people are gonna do things for them. So guys, you gotta be confident, even though it's a new environment, you gotta be able to interact with other people. They're not gonna bite you. So, and if you don't speak out, most people are not gonna be willing to help you because they have their issues too. So that's one of the main things. You get to your host, communicate with them. They're gonna give you a few months. Those few months, utilize them because people get tired. I'm not gonna lie to you. There are some hosts who are good, you know. For me, I was blessed enough. I got very good hosts, I stayed with them and I was able to finish school and all that. But I'm not saying that's gonna be the case for everybody. Some hosts, they would want you to just stay there for a week or so. No, I'm not. I don't mean a week. Like a month or 3 months or even less than 6 months. Then you gotta start showing that you're doing something. You're looking for jobs and all that. So you guys, this is the time. We are in a very very good time where we have technology. Make sure you're using Google. Ask Google any question. How do I get a driver's license, or where do I take my driver's license exam? How do you drive a car? How the road signs. Go on YouTube. All those things are there. We're in a very very good age. You don't even really need to ask your host most of the things. You just need the internet. I remember when I got here, I used the internet. I would ask any questions. There are those forums. You can go to Reddit. You ask a question how to drive maybe a vehicle in USA. Then at the end of that sentence, you add Reddit. Reddit is like an online forum, and you find a lot of people discussing that topic. How to parallel parking. All those things you're gonna need to know depending on the state you go to. So because the way you're gonna get out of the host, somebody who is hosting you, the easiest way you're gonna be able to get out of there. You need freedom. You need to be able to drive. Once you're able to drive and you secure your vehicle, now you're like unstoppable, because once you have a vehicle, you'll be able to, if you need food, you go eat. If somebody calls you, hey man, can you come here and help me? I'll pay you a few dollars. You'll be able to go and do that. If you're searching for a job, you'll be able to go. So that's the main thing. Learning, the rules of the road, getting your driver's license, that's the main thing. But also it depends with the state. Mostly, maybe if you're in a state like in a place like Seattle or New York or any city that has good public transportation, you might not be in need for a vehicle, because you just need to learn the system, the train system or the bus system, how to catch a bus, a bus going from point A to B. But mostly if you're in the southern states, let's say you're in let's say Missouri, Tennessee, or most of those states, their bus system is not that good. You're gonna have to wait a long time to catch a bus, and it's just not, you don't want to go through that, because a place for like 15 minutes, you're gonna end up spending over 2 hours to get there. So depending on the state you go to, you're gonna need a vehicle. Mostly in the southern states, you definitely gonna need a vehicle. On the East Coast, West Coast, they have some not so bad bus system or train system or metro, light rail, and you'll be able to move around. But mostly in the southern states, first thing you need to learn is about, and most of the DME, the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, mostly they offer the books for learning about. There's the theory portion and there's the practical. The theory portion is where you study, making a left turn, or maybe on the lights, yellow lights, green lights, making where you cannot make U-turns, knowing about speed road signs. So that's the theory. So they ask you those questions. You read the book. So that's the first thing when you get here. Make sure you get a hold of, and you have to, depending on the states, because they're different. So if you're in a state, let's pick a state like California. They have their book, for studying the rules of the road. So, and I'm sure if you Google online, you'll be able to find that book and read the book. That way, you can go to the nearest DMV and take the theory portion of that exam. And once you take the theory portion, now the next thing is you're gonna get maybe a permit, but you would need to have somebody in the vehicle to teach you, when you're driving, to teach you. That way you can get ready for the skills, test. That way when you go out there in the skill test, you know everything you need to do. Mostly you go there with a vehicle you're familiar with, and yeah, there's a little bit of poor connection. So when it comes back, we'll continue. That's so yeah, so you want to go with a vehicle you're familiar with, because you're gonna get in, one of the guys, um, administering or checking, grading you on the skills test. They're gonna be with you in the vehicle. It's just gonna be you in the driver's seat and them in the other side, and they're gonna be grading everything you're doing. So you want a vehicle you're used to driving and you're comfortable with, and you've practiced enough, that way you can be able, and if you happen to fail the first time, you can always try the second time. After that time, you're gonna have to go to driving school, so, but it shouldn't be difficult. You should be able to get it on the first try. So that's one of the things, vehicle. So once you have, now you're able to drive now, that's the time you'll be able to look for jobs. And there's a lot of websites you can look for jobs. I always say there's a lot of jobs. So on the jobs, it depending, there's some jobs that are easy to get, but some people are like, they just don't want to do some jobs. I don't blame anybody. It's whatever you feel you want to do. There are jobs, mostly when it comes to jobs, most of the websites, if you're looking for jobs, you want to concentrate mostly on the local. Like if you're in a city, let's say, let's choose a city like Nashville. So if you type Nashville, Craigslist is like a local. It's like how you have those. It's like a website where people post, or they post jobs. If they're selling stuff, and there's a section for jobs, and you can go look at all the different jobs. You might be able to find, some companies also advertise over there. So that's one of the main websites. When I was looking for jobs, I would go there, and I got a lot of jobs from Craigslist. And mostly there's even companies that post their job over there, and they leave their phone numbers of their websites, or they post the jobs in the description, so you'll be able to apply, and all that. So Craigslist, there's also references. So the thing why I was saying you go out there and interact with the people is because they'll give you references where they work. You might want to tell them, hey, if you got something, they're looking for somebody, or how can I apply where you work. When you talk to people, they'll be able to introduce you and tell you, hey, this is what you need to do to get a job, this and that. And there's many jobs for beginners. Also dependent on your qualifications. Some of them, if you studied, you have your in your degrees in specific programs, they might need you to take additional tests, in order to be yeah, you might need to take some additional tests in order to get hired, and to be up to the standards here. So, but some jobs you get them for beginners, mostly they don't require nothing much, but hey, documentation to work, or and high school diploma. You just need to you just need to know how to follow instructions. And mostly you find factory jobs. Maybe you're sorting mails, you're in a place where you're sorting mails, incoming mails, you separate them into different addresses or zip codes, that's one of the jobs. Another one in a factory, they might be manufacturing soap, they might be manufacturing vehicles. There's maybe fast food, maybe cooking food, or operating a drive-through window. Other ones are just housekeeping. So those are like the startup jobs. I'm not saying that's where you should start, but those are the easiest job to get. Even though you're gonna need to apply, and go for an interview. But those are mainly the jobs that don't require a lot of things. They just require you to have a high school diploma, and be able to follow instructions and know English. So and those are the main jobs. Now, when it comes to maybe uh, and the jobs, there are many. Even and it depends with the city and some jobs. It depends. Each state has minimum wage. Minimum wage is like the least amount of money you can be paid per hour. If you're working for a certain employer, for an employer. So and it also depends on some states. There some states, because of the cost of living, their minimum wage is higher. So in some states it's lower because the cost of living is not so high. So and it also depends on the company. Sometimes like a company like Amazon, mostly they pay them average. I've talked to guys who work for Amazon. I know a few guys. And mostly you're working, in their shops, in the factory. Maybe you're delivering mails or just general stuff. Amazon is a online. They do all that selling, shipping, and all that. So mostly they get paid $15 an hour, which is not bad money if you're in a state where the cost of living is really low. So $15 an hour. Places like Walmart, I think Walmart, they're paying. I think I've seen $12. Then places like gas station, maybe they'll pay you $9 an hour. And in gas stations, you selling customers coming to buy cigarettes or liquor or just candy or snacks, drinks, and you are the cashier, so maybe $9 an hour. So there's those guys. Maybe you're hired by a rental company where you wash the vehicles, and they pay you some money. There's also, I think I've already talked about jobs, so you guys make sure you go check out the video. In one of the videos, I talked about the different jobs and how much they pay in USA, so you can kind of get an idea. So that's with the job. So now getting a vehicle, it also depends with your when you start now. Maybe you got in a job, and if you guys have questions about jobs, make sure you leave them in the comment section, or maybe just inbox me or email me. I'll be able to answer them, whenever I get time, because it's broad and I cannot discuss everything concerning jobs. Now with the now say you got in a job and all that, you're starting to make money, and maybe you need a vehicle. So that's another thing. uh it depends on what you want in a vehicle. Mostly if you're a beginner, you just want something that's dependable, so something that's going to take you from point A to B, that's not going to give you a lot of issues with fixing and all that. So mostly, and the vehicles, uh some people you might be able to pay cash. You might have raised, something maybe over $5,000. You're trying to get a vehicle, and you guys already have an idea. There's also financing where like it's dependent on credit, how your credit is. But as a beginner, you really don't have a credit. You haven't established, a lot. You just got here. So but if you have cash with 5,000 to 10,000, you should be able to get a vehicle. Mostly with the vehicles, it depends on what you want. If you're looking for a dependable vehicle, mostly I would go with Toyotas. They're really dependable, depending on what you want to get. Mostly, yes, they are really dependable. Maybe Acura. Acura is also dependable, but it can be a little bit pricey. So Acura, Toyota, uh, Lexus 2 or Honda, they're really dependable. And with the you have to also look at the consumption of True was there for 4 years ago. Patricia Mara. So did you stayed 4 years? You left. Okay. So yeah. So with those vehicles, so you want to look for a dependable vehicle, because you start looking for an expensive vehicle and it breaks down, then you need more money to try and fix it. So guys, look, those are dependable vehicles. And if you're looking for vehicles, like I'm saying, you get references. Some people might be selling the vehicles. Look for guys, maybe somebody has a dealer's license. A dealer's license, one of the when you're interacting with people, making connections, they might be able to go to an auction and get you a cheaper vehicle with like 2,000 or 3,000. uh so, and you might have people who are selling their vehicles for cheap. If you're looking online, Craigslist is a website you can look. Facebook Market. There's another one called OfferUp. Uh, there's then the car websites. You go like there's one called Carvana. You can shop for a vehicle online and they deliver it to you. Uh, you can look at Car Gurus or Carfax, CarMax, and Edmunds. Those are just the basic websites of vehicles, and you can go and narrow them to the mileage of the vehicle, or the cost, the make, the vehicle. So, and those will be able to assist you, and they have everything. Is just as if you have internet connection, you have everything you need, because the internet has everything. You just need to go check for those cars, check their website, give them a call, or just go to their lot. You want to make sure it's within the city where you can, somewhere not far away from you, you know, and you should be able to check out those cars. They will let you maybe test drive them, and you talk about that, but you need to be able to know what you want or what you're looking for before you go out there. That way they don't get trying to sell you a really expensive vehicle where you have a hard time making the payments. So that's with the vehicle. With the vehicle, gas or petrol, depending on the country you're coming from. They normally love to call it petrol here, or if maybe your car takes in diesel. So with the gas, it depends on the state you're in. If you're in a state like Missouri, gas might be, let's say for regular gas, uh, might be $2 and 50 cents. You go to somewhere like California, it might be close to $4. So it also depends on the state you go to. So it depends on where you're being hosted. Your host might be in a very expensive state, and that's just who you are able to get. So you're just gonna be in an expensive state where you're really paying high, expensive for the staff. Or your host might be in a cheaper state where you're not paying that much, but it's where you get your host. That's where you go. Mostly, unless maybe you have many friends who are going to host you in the different states, where you can make a choice of where you want to go. But mostly you really don't have a choice. You just need somebody to host you. That way you can go there. So you got your vehicle and now you have a job. So moving on to maybe apartments, also dependent on the state you go to. Let's say I'll choose a city like let's say like Clarksville, Tennessee. That's this it's like a city between the border of the state of Tennessee and Kentucky. So let's say for like a 3 bedroom house, might be able to get it for $800. But for beginners, you don't really need that 3 bedroom house, or maybe a 1 bedroom house, depending on the state. Let's say you go to a place like Missouri, a 1 bedroom house, you should be able to get it for close to $500 or $600. If you're doing a 2 bedroom house, you should be able to get it for 600 to 700. If you're doing maybe a 3 bedroom, you're looking at 800 to 1,200. It also depends on the city, because even in a big city, there is also those small cities, or small municipalities where rent is different, because also the place is just like depending on where you're coming from. There's some parts of the town where you're coming from where it's expensive, and some parts it's really cheap. So, but that was just an average, and that's not the same for all states. You go to some states like California, you're looking at us very, very tiny. Let's say you're in LA or San Francisco, you're looking at a very, very tiny, a studio where you have everything. You keep your bed there and your kitchen. Like, it's a small, and you're looking at over, 1800, which is really expensive. So it also depends on which state you go or the city. So that's with the housing maybe. And if you it's better maybe to look for a roommate, maybe a two-bedroom, and look for a roommate. That way you guys can split out the bills, depending on how your pocket is. If you just got here, maybe you got lucky, or you were really qualified, you got a nice paying job, so why you can live in your own house. Some people don't like living with other people, and it's understandable. If you can afford it, well and good. uh, but all these things are going to be dependent on your pocket. So those are the main things for the beginners. So in terms of bills, yes, you guys, I know you want to hear that. So let's say you have a vehicle. So let's say you bought a dependable vehicle. So, and your work, you don't drive a lot. Let's say you do an average of 10 to 20 miles a day, which is still a little bit high. Maybe you're going from school to work, you're going to see some friends, or going some buy some groceries, and you go back home. So let's give it maybe 10 to 20 miles. So if you have a dependable vehicle, you should be able to put in, let's say, $40, and it's gonna last you like a week or so. Or also depending on some vehicles, because there's some vehicles they really take in a lot of gas, but a dependable vehicle is not gonna take you all that gas. So in a month, you're looking at $300 spending on gas, which is really up there. uh, and it's just an average, and it also depends on the state you're going, or the city. So I'm just doing averages so I can give you an idea of how much you'll be spending, because there's always this question. People are like, oh, you make a lot of money, why don't you send us money back home? But they don't really understand. People make all that money, but that money goes into all these expenses. So gas, you're looking at 300 a month, or 200. Food, yeah, I mean, unless you're eating a lot. Also, I'm giving you average, the higher average, so that you guys have an idea. On food, if you're just feeding yourself, you should be able to do well with $200, the whole month. That means you're not eating a lot. You're not just binge eating. 200 should do you good. $200. Make sure you have everything you need. So that's on food. Food, I'm not gonna dive into food. There's fast food. There's, you can cook at home. Cooking at home might be, is cheaper, because you can cook food for, like, on Monday, and you have the food for the whole week. And you should be able, depending on the country you come from, you should be able to find most of the food you make back home, uh, over here. And you should be able to prepare the same, food you are preparing back home over here. So that's with the food. The other one is, let's go into, you know you would need some, let's say, clothing. I mean, it depends on what you want. Some people want designer, some people want expensive clothes, some people don't care if they get used clothing. So there's millions of shops. If you want used, lightly used clothing, there's Goodwill, there's thrift stores, there's and for cheaper clothing which is not used, is just new, you might get Ross. There's a store called Ross. And there's all these types of stores. You should be able to see them when you're driving around the main road of where the city, like where your host is. And most of them they will be able to tell you where you can get cheaper. So I mean, you shouldn't have a problem finding clothing. There's a lot of shops, even online. You go online, you should be able, even shoes. you should be able to get all those things, and they are not really necessities, but you should be able to get them for cheap, if that's what you want. If you want expensive ones, then and you're working hard, then you can also go to the mall and get them. So that's with the clothing. So with the bills, so depending on where you're living. So maybe if you're living in an apartment, some places, if you're living in the city, they don't charge you for water, it's free. Some places they'll charge you for water. Maybe you might pay $50 a month. If you want internet at home, it might be $50 a month. Some people want cable where you be able to watch TV and all these channels and all that. If you have the time to watch TV, some people do, some don't. So, and that can be a little bit expensive. You're looking at over $100 a month. The other one is electricity. Uh, you're looking at over $100. It can go up to $200 depending on the season. And depend. Yeah. Then there also gas. You need gas. Some houses they use gas. To uh make the water hot. In the house, or make you warm your house during winter when it gets cold. That one can run up to, sometimes it can go up to $300. So, and we've already talked about rent. So you need to pay for your phone. Maybe some phones you might get for $65. You may even get $45 or even $25, depending on what you're using your phone for. So, and the other things, so those should be the main things for the house. And maybe if you're in an apartment, some of them they pay for trash, so you just go take it in the dustbins, and they take care of that. So also, in some apartments they maintain everything out there, including cutting the grass and all that for you. So guys, I'm just gonna leave it over here. I'm not gonna continue with this, but if you guys have any more questions, make sure you leave them in the comment section, or you email me Mshamba Marekani at gmail, or just go to my Facebook Mshamba Marekani, inbox me. I'll be able to answer you more questions, and maybe some other time we'll continue with this topic. It's Mshamba Marekani, and I'm signing out.